James Fletcher, welcome to the podcast, bro.
Thank you very much for having me, Keegan.
Mate,
Appreciate it.
I'm so excited for this. This has kind of been like a full circle moment for us, right? Because we were knocking around together back when I was playing footy in it must have been like 2017, 2018.
Yeah, around then.
And now obviously a few years later we're back, and I'm really keen just to not only talk about your story but talk around breathwork in general, the whole place. But yeah, man, I'm really pumped to have you on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
How's the morning been? We've been out. We had a nice little coffee. The Gold Coast sun is out. It's beautiful, man. How's the morning?
Yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful things of living here on the Gold Coast is this. Now we start to get more opportunities with business, and as we sort of head into our later lives, that becomes important. But always the nature just continues to turn it on here on the Gold Coast. Yeah, it's hard to spend significant times away from it, because whenever you come back, you get mornings like this where the surf's pumping, sun's out, no wind. Yeah, awesome.
It was like we're doing a potty this morning. We're like, oh, there's a little wave just on that bank. Like maybe we just go for a little wave instead.
Nice.
Mate, I feel like just even knowing a little bit about your background and reconnecting like a little while ago, I feel like there's so many like really cool aspects of your story. But then for you, where do you think your story starts in terms of really leaning into breath work and really getting into this space? Because it's obviously had such a profound impact on your life. Where do you think your story starts?
I mean, as a brief interlude, I think I had a teacher when I was really young. He's still here on the coast, Mr. Brett Dowker, his name is, who sort of took me under his wing in terms of show me what it means to be healthy, show me what exercise is, and was sort of really a guiding light in my really early years. Then I became a physio, I think because of that sort of exposure to health and fitness and athletes, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I was a physio for Cirque du Soleil, traveling around the world. I was with them for a few years, and the breathwork journey definitely started when March 11, 2011, when we had the Fukushima earthquake in Tokyo. So I was in charge of 80 athletes, and we evacuated to China, and we spent 2 weeks gambling and having good fun.
and not training?
Yeah, and not training. And then we were invited back into Tokyo 2 weeks later to be the first show to be performing again in Japan after that, the Fukushima incident. So for me, we were back in an environment with constant aftershocks. So we were living on the 44th floor of a building in Tokyo. So anyone who's been in an earthquake before, or aftershocks, particularly if you're in a building that high, like you feel the building move, you hear it creak.
Yeah. Is that scary?
Oh, well, it's just totally out of your control, right?
Yeah.
So you're just a passenger. Yeah. And hoping it's not falling over, right?
Yeah.
And I heard that Japanese buildings are built pretty solid.
That's comfy.
Yeah, I hope so. And then the stories are like, if you feel another big earthquake, turn the bath on, open up all the doors, so you've got a water supply and you've got an escape route.
Oh, gotcha.
So anyway, so we're living in this environment which is essentially constantly under threat, right? Really hard to sleep because you're always sort of on this edge. And there's a real thing called earthquake syndrome where you're just like if you've been on a boat for any significant time, you come off it and then you feel like you're on the boat again, So we'd always have a glass of water near us because we would feel something internally or externally and look at the glass. And if the glass is wobbling, then it's real.
Gotcha.
But these guys are in some of the biggest acts in the world, the Wheel of Death. This is an act on the show I'm on. My job is to look after these athletes, and their job is to stay on the Wheel of Death. And then they're having aftershocks during training, during shows, before shows, or people on the high wire. They're balancing on a wire this big, 9 meters in the air, and their job is to run on it, ride a bike on it.
Yeah.
And there's aftershocks.
Did you find a lot of athletes were really struggling with the aftershock symptoms or the syndrome, the earthquake syndrome?
It wasn't just one thing. It was a bunch of things. It was this 2 weeks of not training. It was lack of sleep because of, the anxiety and the fear. It was worry and at the time it was a huge worry, but obviously looking back on it, maybe it still is. The fallout, the nuclear fallout. Like, okay, this plant is melting down, and it's 800 or 900 kilometers away from us, but still, where's our food coming from?
Yeah.
Like how mobile is this fallout? And then training and that the tension in the group within itself was like, oh, we don't want to be here, and the show wasn't making us do that, but it was like this: if you guys want to do it, it would be a great thing for you to bring some joy back to the community, to the Japanese community after they went through this huge thing. So it was everything, and I had to find something fast to help these athletes, sleep, stress, anxiety, performance. I was just like, what is there? How can I help them? I'm just a physio. And it was weird. At the same time, my mum got diagnosed with a lung condition from smoking. And that sort of shone a light on breathwork, and not the breathwork that maybe people think. It was very clinical training of the breath, right? It was very much from research and papers, particularly with a focus on disease states. And then I started adapting those sort of protocols and that sort of training to the audience I had, which was the circus athlete.
Because I imagine with your background with physio, a lot of your stuff is obviously like evidence-based. So I can't imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I can't imagine you wanting to implement something with your mum or even these physio or even these athletes if there wasn't evidence to back it up, right? Or if it wasn't like, this can actually help, or was the evidence not really around at the time?
No, that I'm exactly like that. Like, I need to see the research. I need to see the evidence. It needs to make sense for me as a scientist. I'm like, how are we making change? Why is the body responding like that? And show me the evidence. And I think that's probably slowed me down a little bit, because I'm always sort of waiting for that evidence or for the things to sort of make sense to me. But you're exactly right. That's where I started. I was like, okay, these interventions in these papers make this difference. This is what I'm looking for not only my mum, but for these circus athletes as well. And they're the highest level athletes that I've worked with a lot of high level athletes, and a circus athlete kind of doesn't give it the attention. And like, these are amazing athletes, like not just highly skillful, but dedicated, training twice a day for these acts, and a real focus on performance. The show I was on was a performance-based circus show. So it was the best circus athletes available. Chuck them in a show and let's try and make it work.
And I imagine like breath, like you said, you came into the breath, you found out about it. I imagine it's probably like a super low cost thing that like everyone can implement, right? Like, because when I think of like the top level athletes, I imagine that they want all the little 1%. Like, they want to be the best athlete they can be, or someone who's just like your mum who just wants to be healthy. It's a super cost effective thing that everyone can do, right? Is that something that you like was like an easy thing to implement?
Yeah, but again, I want to measure. Like, I want to say, all right, well, if I'm taking this group of athletes and I want to do some training with them, let's measure you at the start. And like I say, how do you measure the breath? So I used some tools initially, which were maybe $1,000 to purchase. So that was the first start. But now I don't use any tools with any of my clients, because I've seen over the last 15 to 20 or 15 years of doing this, it's there's certain things that you need to achieve. But you're exactly right. You've got the tools right under your nose. And there's certain things with the breath. If you do a certain structured, I believe if you do it a certain structured way, then you can get not just what the research shows the benefits are. So just briefly there, like, what I first noticed was reductions in shortness of breath. So if you're running, if you're playing footy, that constant sprinting and stopping, that shortness of breath feeling, we can reduce that so you can make better decisions and perform higher. We've got improvements in quality of life and reductions in medication usage for asthma. So they were the three things that I was like, and improvement in exercise tolerance. So I was like, wow, for a population, this type of breath training has delivered these results. And it wasn't just one paper, it was 43 controlled trials of over 800 patients. So I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to start my journey of breathing. And then I'm going to try this with the high wire guys. I'm going to try this with the Wheel of Death guys. And then I'm going to try this with the big Russians, you know.
What were the outcomes, or what were the positive things that you saw straight out of the gate? Like, what did that scenario look like as you're implementing it?
Yeah. So the first one was, and I feel this straight away with many clients, is a reduction in shortness of breath.
Yeah.
So the high wire athletes, it's quite an intense act for 7 minutes, and they get small periods of rest in between when people are clapping for them. So you can imagine 2 weeks not training, right? Quite quickly you become deconditioned.
Yeah.
And the high wire act itself is really interesting because it is such a highly skilled act. Their body needs to be in tune. So they need to train more than any other circus act, just so they can get their body dialed into that experience. And they put it away for 2 weeks. They've got a lot of work to do. So they're puffing, you know, they're out of breath. They're not focused on their balance. They're not focused on their cues. So straight away we were able to not cure that, but at least alleviate some of that feeling for them. Pre-performance anxiety. So having some tools under their belt where they could really focus on the long exhale, reducing their heart rate, and giving them a more sense of control over an environment that they didn't feel in control of anymore.
Can you break that down for me a little bit more? Because I think like there are so many people, myself included, who have gone through times where like you're in like a really anxious state, whether it's nerves before a game, whether it's like potentially going out into some big surf, or even like going into a day of work where you don't want to have a really gnarly conversation. What is it about like that type of breath, like training, or that type of like breath work stuff that would help manage anxiety?
I mean, you see it now in the football fields, right? You're watching a game on Friday night after a try or after a penalty or something. You see the group get together, right? And you see them essentially collectively sigh, right? So they breathe in together. All right. So it's from the research perspective, we know long exhales slow down heart rate. So what does that give you? It probably gives you a bit more control. You know, probably puts you in the position where, and again, the research shows this, if I force you to breathe hard, right, so you're puffed, or I force you to breathe against resistance, we can activate sympathetic nervous systems, which is the fight or flight response, which is, you know, let's run, let me run at him, let me be aggressive and do that, which is exactly what we need at certain times. But then if we do that collective sigh, or if we do long exhales, then, as I said, the heart rate reduces. And then we're in that more parasympathetic mode where we can take in more of the sensory information and we can make better decisions. Right. So I think that is allowing like the sigh or this pre-performance piece. If we reduce heart rate, we get a better picture of what exactly is going on rather than have the environment control us. We're starting to gain a little bit more control over that environment again.
I think that was probably one of the big reasons why I came and saw you all those years ago. Because same thing, I like wanted the little 1%ers, and I was at a time where I think I was coming off the bench into like the thick of the game, but like super aggressive, super like 100 miles an hour type athlete. So I would run into, I'd be like super high, but I'd gas super quickly. So I remember a lot of the stuff we worked on was reducing that to be able to make clearer decisions. And I remember there was we were doing like I had a video I was going to show you beforehand, but it was like us we were measuring like it was when we very first started, we were measuring like my volume of breath. It was just nice to like look back at them and think, oh, that's like a full circle moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's cool. Like I think that was really cool. And it was super beneficial because I was aware of it. Like beforehand, I wouldn't even been aware of like, oh, what do you mean? Like I can lower my heart rate and lower my, I guess, like stress and anxiety levels to be able to make clearer decisions. I never even knew that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a research topic. So after that work with you, I did some more reading and found out I guess a few tweaks to those techniques that we were doing to exactly treat that issue. It was like running off the bench into an environment where you're going from zero to hero, right? So there's a number of physiological principles that we're dealing with there, right? So one of them is this like the catch up essentially. So you're going from 0 and then you're running out there into 100, right? And the body takes time to go from 0 to 100. So you've got to pay that debt back, right? And usually we feel it as a shortness of breath or a gassing out feeling. So if you can limit that debt, with some training or with some tools, then it's certainly going to impact your feeling of going from after 2 hit-ups, like 3 hit-ups, I'm gassed, reintegrating or integrating into a game environment. And I think that was working with you. I was also working with some big wave surfers at the time, and they were saying something quite similar to you. They were saying like, I just want to feel like I've had a wipeout, like before I've been out there, and I guess similar to you, I want to feel like I'm had a few hit-ups and I'm into the game, like as I start the game, because as soon as you start, you can't make a mistake, because that could lead to try, that could lead to anything,
Yeah.
and the breathing system allows us to do that, is to right under our nose. Sometimes people don't even know you're doing it, right? And you're training or preparing your body for a system or for an event or for whatever's in front of you,
I love that. And I think there's I am curious to, I guess, break down certain particular sports and how different types of breath can be beneficial. Even when you were talking about the Cirque du Soleil crew, how you were individualizing the high rope versus the wheel of death, and I am keen to talk about that. But like being at the Cirque du Soleil, that's a really left field, a really left field environment to get into. How do you even get into that type of work? Or that scenario? How do you even get there?
Yeah, I think as a physio, I guess particularly Australian physios, we are really highly trained. And I really think that we're highly undervalued in today's medical system, which is an aside. But I was physio here on the Gold Coast for a good sporting physio. I was actually the physio for the Fijian rugby league team in the World Cup.
Yeah, cool.
So I went to a few games with those guys. That was, I think, Ashton Sims and Jared Hayne at the time.
Yeah.
And then just from the back of that and the work in that sporting arena, this is going to sound weird, but in a football environment or in a team sport environment, particularly in Australia, you're sort of at the bottom of the chain of decision making. It's like coaches and strength and conditioning coaches and doctors and all these sorts of things, and then you get to the physio, and I never felt like I got to really utilize my skills in looking after people and understanding pathology, and particularly now, like where we understand pain in the body, like it's so much bigger than the structure, and as a physio, I always felt I had more to give. It was like, okay, you've got knee pain, but you didn't do anything, and so something's going on here. Let's have a chat, let's talk about some things. And then, a friend of mine worked for Cirque du Soleil, and she said, well, you're in charge of 80 of the best athletes in the world. And everything from injuries to illness to mental health and you're in a foreign environment where you can't access support like doctors, and who's like, we're in Russia, right? And a girl has a mental health issue and she wants to jump off, like in the middle of a show, like jump off this thing, and she's coming to me to have that. And then she's Brazilian and she's saying, I've taken all these pills. So you're in the middle of a show. She's saying these things that might hurt herself or others around her. She's also saying that she's taken some things. So you've got to manage that situation. Now you can't call the ambulance, right? You can't, you've got to sort that out. So that's where I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like I get to look after people how I want to look after them, and we're traveling around the world and we're having a good time doing it, you know, like, and dancing that line between being a professional and people trusting you, but also you're in a circus and you're traveling around the world and you're having fun, like it was that was, so for me, that was the perfect job for me as a physio, because it allowed me to be the type of physio that I am. And I was so super lucky to have that experience.
Did it feel like you were like not thrown in the deep end, but you're managing so much? Like you're not just looking after their shoulder injuries or like a sore calf. It's just like you were talking about, like the girl, the mental health issues, like the whole thing. Did it felt like you were thrown in the deep end at all?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like I started, like my first week was, this is Fukushima, like. But I think just as growing up and dealing with lots of adversity. I think my superpower is turning negatives into positives.
Mm.
I think that's the number one skill I have in life. So with all those situations, I was able to sort of say, well, here I am. That's just my job. Mm. Just something popped up in my head when you were saying that. I remember walking in the Fukushima, we were dealing with this, and then literally 2 weeks later, I'm working with the Russians, and Fedor's got his baby, and he drops his kid onto the mat, like accidentally, and he just picks it up and gives it to me. He says, "Fix," and and I'm just like, "Oh, bro, like no." But that was the sort of like how they looked at us, right? And that was what I wasn't searching for that, but I felt so at home having that like trust and I could really utilize my skills and yes, thrown into the deep end, but as a physio, we're a pretty rounded therapist, not really specific in one thing, but can take a lot on.
Do you reckon being thrown into the deep end, like you would have grown so much more in that time versus just being in like you mentioned, being at like the bottom of the barrel in like professional sporting team?
Oh, I think I would get too frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, I worked with Australian swimming as well, and just the frustrations around that, and not sort of reacting. It's just sort of like, oh, this is policy and procedure. This is just what we do. I was just like, that's great.
Yeah.
But what about all this stuff? Like, oh no, we don't look at that. Like where in the environment I was in. You will, like that scenario with the girl is like you're calling a translator, you're getting a boyfriend, you're getting some support, you're just pulling at whatever whatever you can do in that scenario. It's like, we've got to deal with this situation and let's deal with it.
It's well, I've had actually a few conversations with some really intelligent people within organizations, whether they are physios or psychologists, and probably like more credited than like anyone in the organization, right? But understanding the dynamic of a professional sporting team where it's like you've got board members, you've got coaches who are just like regular people who are just figuring it out, and yes, lived experience is great, but probably not having like a really deep understanding. It's like being able to navigate that and knowing kind of like where you stand. It's hard, and I think it's harder to make change. But then you also see those teams who do it so incredibly well, like looking in the NRL space, like Penrith Panthers, like looking the way, or even Melbourne Storm with Craig Bellamy. Like these guys are open to having these type of conversations and looking at things a bit more holistically. Like we did a podcast with Nathan Cleary, one of the best NRL players in the world, right? And he talked about, he had this really gnarly thing of like fear of other people's opinions. So when he dropped the ball like mid-game, he'd be like, oh, what are these people going to say about me online? And he's like, how am I supposed to play my best game of footy when I'm thinking about this mid-game? And so they did a whole heap of work outside and brought in these like really just like incredible people in that space to focus more on the mind and things away from sport. Because he's like, the hard thing about professional sport isn't the actual playing of the sport, it's like the mind and all the things. And so it just come into my mind when you were saying, oh, we're not actually just physios, we're looking at everything holistically. How do you go about talking to athletes now? Like what's changed from when you first started to now looking at things holistically?
Well, I think that comes along all with like I'm in research and my sort of focus now is breathing and pain, and I think they have such a close relationship with each other. And if I am dealing with breathing or pain and I'm working with an athlete, I believe we're being so reductionist in our approach to looking after someone. You have back pain, therefore you must have a back issue, right? As a physio, we might extend that up the spine a little bit or down into the hips a little bit to say, oh, there might be a referral pattern. But we know now, and we're trying to change this in the work I do now, is this understanding of pain is about the person, So I don't treat a knee anymore. I don't treat a back, I treat a person,
So what does that look like?
That means having a conversation with them, really. So talking, they will come to see me or come to see the business I work for in workplaces around Australia, right? Oh, my back's sore, my knee's sore. Okay, well, what's going on? Tell me how this is presented. And usually, Keegan, it's funny, we're seeing this rise, we call them body stressing injuries,
Yeah.
right? It's where nothing's really happened. You've hurt yourself as part of your normal everyday thing, right? So if your day is having coffees, going riding for a bike, and then going to the gym, as a part of that day, you've now got back pain. And we now there's so many levers to pain in the body, right? All pain comes from the brain. So what affects the brain? Everything, right? So we can have someone who's gone for their bike ride this morning, stepped off their bike and tweaked their back, and it's because they're had a fight with their partner last night.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to soft start up. They didn't know how to close that argument. They laid there for 2 hours restless. They had a bad night's sleep, and they woke up and did their normal day. And because their force field was down, we talk about this idea of a force field, then their back was essentially their outlet of their choices over the last 24 hours, you know?
It's interesting. It's like a holistic approach, right? Like, it's just like, it's not just the one incident. It's not like the trigger event, but it's everything that leads up to it, right?
Everything. It's, and it can seem daunting to people. It's like, oh, well, everything's a problem, you know? Well, it's like, well, then everything's a solution as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if I've got back pain, I don't just have to go to a doctor or a physio or go have surgery or have an injection now. Well, when I know my relationship is part of this pain, what can I do there? I know my food intake is part of this pain. I know my exercise is part of this pain. So now as an individual or as a business, you have many opportunities to start managing pain within yourself or in your workplace.
Do you think having that awareness is the first step? Because imagine if someone came to you and you're like, look, I've got like, my knee is so sore, like I can't run a certain, and you're like, well, tell me a little bit more. It might be your relationship. You're like, fuck off, mate. It's like, what do you mean? Like, my knee's sore. Like,
let's hold hands.
I came to fix my knee. Like, how do you navigate those types of conversations with people who push back?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about first of all, the setting. So it's like, what happened, right? If you're playing football and someone lands on your knee, it's a different story, right? We know there's tissue damage there, and our system, is particularly Australia, is, and like I said, I work for Circus. I traveled all around the world, and my job was to look after people. So I got an exposure to how their first responder systems work and how their medical systems work. If something bad happens in Australia, you're in a good place, right? You know, if you're hit cancer, if you have a heart attack or something happens, our system is really set up for that. It's really the other things, you know, it's the rehabilitation, it's the softer skills and the more nuanced conversations or things that I think Australia can do so much better at.
Yeah.
And then that's the conversation that you have with the individual, right? It's like, okay, tell me what happened. You know? And then usually I start it with like, okay, now, like, oh, I was just doing my everyday thing. I got off my bike, and how many times have you done that? Oh, I do it every day, right? So how did you hurt yourself this time? You know, all I want is them to start questioning, did they hurt themselves?
Yeah.
Right. And as soon as I can see that, oh, hang on, well, if I've done that 1,000 times before, or I see people playing football and they have to get hit to get injured, and maybe I'm not injured or damaged. Maybe I do just have pain. And that's exactly what we see, Keegan, now in the research is pain is 100% separate to damage. You know, so you can have pain and not have any damage in the body, right? So pain exists on this separate space, right? And I tell this weird story to patients, and if you just hang in with me for a minute, we both got troopies. Well, let's say we both go camping, but you go camping all the time. You make us a fire. I put my hand near the fire, and because I'm not that experienced with fire as you're a fire master, I get close to the fire and I pull back. Oh, that's hot. I've got pain, but I look at my hand and there's no damage. So I can have pain and there can be no damage. Which is really interesting, right? Because we see lots of patients who have scans and then they make decisions on surgeries, on their careers. I see, and this is the one thing that I get out of bed for, mate. It's like, I hate to hear people getting bad advice in the medical space and stop them doing from the things they love. All right. I retired and I want to play golf, but now I've got this rotator cuff tendon tear and my doctor said I can't play golf anymore. Like, that breaks my heart. You know, it's like, you've spent 50 years of your life working. Now you're ready to enjoy it and someone's told you can't do that, you know? Sorry, back on my fire story. And then you're the fire master, right? And you come up, you put your hand closer to the fire and then you pull it back because you're like, oh, it's a bit hot, but you've experienced the pain differently to me.
Yeah.
So your experience of pain is different to myself. And we've both experienced pain and we both don't have any damage. So we're starting to sort of really step into this idea about what we understand about pain. And I think we've really mismanaged it for many people over the last 20 or 30 years in particular.
What I get from that story with the two people with the fire in the hands is like, can we lean into pain? Like if we expose ourselves to pain, like that person who's put their hand in the fire, pulled it back, they're used to it. They've been doing it 1,000 times, right? In life and just the way we operate, is leaning into pain okay?
Mate, that's the thing. It's the 100% thing. Like, if we can determine that there's no tissue damage, right? You didn't have an exposed trauma or force load, which is what most of the leave that we see in the clinic and in workplaces around Australia, then the objective is to exactly do that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, first of all, get that person to question their pain and understanding that their pain doesn't mean they're broken. And then, and I remember having these thoughts as a young physio. It's like, if I'm leaning over someone's back and I'm mobilizing a facet joint, right? I'm sure you've had that work done before as a footy player. Like, what am I actually doing to this thing?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I remember having that when I was a young physio. I'm like, am I putting it back into place? Because that's probably the popular culture, right? Oh yeah, you're putting that joint back into place. The next step down is probably like, oh, you're improving the glide of that joint so that it moves better, right? I thought that was bullshit, you know, but I'm a physio and I spent 7 years and 60 grand to be one. So I had to sort of believe it.
Yeah.
But now I think that we treat the nervous system. It's like, so even just what I was doing to that back, I think I'm telling the body it doesn't need to create pain in this area.
Yeah.
Brain, it's okay to not create pain when this joint moves, right? That's what I think I'm doing.
Yeah.
So what I think now is we're enabling patients to have that same physiotherapy treatment approach at home now by leaning into pain, right? So where we would say, oh, you'll do these exercises and I'll create pain in the clinic, but when you go home, don't create the pain, all right? Just do your exercises within range and don't create pain.
Yeah.
Now we're saying, go and create pain. Lean into that, because if there is nothing wrong, and that's what we've established, then you're not hurting yourself. What you're doing is you're treating your nervous system. You're telling your brain and your nervous system it doesn't need to create pain there.
Yeah. It's because we get stuck in our own heads.
Absolutely.
I think about friends and family members who don't go surfing and they don't play golf because they're like, oh, last time I did that, like I hurt my back and my back spasmed and I was out for 2 weeks, and there's that fear and that anxiety. I even know, like myself with squatting and deadlifting. Like I had some gnarly instances when I remember, like when I was at Para, my very first week at Para after like the 2-week Christmas break. So heap of drinking and partying. And then first day back, it was like fitness tests in the morning into like 1 RM deadlifts, like just to see where we're at. Like fucking footy. Yeah. And I remember I went to deadlift and then I felt my back like pop or whatever, and then my whole back just spasmed up, and like it was a whole ordeal, and the stress and anxiety for everything else because I was supposed to be moving into my house. I had trucks coming with all my furniture. I had my partner wasn't there, all this gnarly stuff. And now, ever since that moment, and even some other moments, I was just like, well, I don't deadlift, I don't squat, because the last time I did that, I hurt myself, and I don't want to do that again.
And that's 100% real. And I don't want to like discredit anyone's pain experience, because pain is 100% real, right? But you brought up a really interesting point there, and some research we did a few years ago highlights this. It's like we got patients to turn their neck, and they had neck pain, and they would stop when they got neck pain. And then we put a virtual reality system on to trick their eyes into thinking they're moving less, and they move past their pain immediately. Wow. So the visual input and that visual stimulus of being in the deadlift, holding that deadlift bar, your body's like, well, last time I did this, I had pain. So therefore, I'm going to create pain. Or at least my nervous system is going to be on more alert when I do this.
Yeah.
Right? And that could be the same anywhere. Like you could be working in a workplace and experience pain. And then the next time you're in that workplace, your body's at a heightened risk of creating pain. But if you don't get back on the horse, Keegan, for your deadlifts, right, you're never going to overcome that fear, and your body's not going to have the ability to reorganize its nervous system based on that experience that you had. Right?
So what do I need to do? I need to have awareness of that like pain. Just because I have pain doesn't mean that there's something broken.
Exactly.
And leaning into the pain.
Yeah. So go and deadlift.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again.
And do it in a safe way.
That's right. You need, like, it's nice to feel supported in these environments because pain is really fearsome and you can not do damage, but you can set yourself up for failure. Like, let's say you go back to deadlifting and then you're like, I'm going to do this 1 rep max thing again. And then you hurt yourself again, right? Because I would probably say that you did hurt yourself with that 1 rep max thing. Like, there was some tissue change. But that's okay. We would still treat it the same. We would say, all right, well, there is a period of rest and recovery, but that's only 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Now I want you to start moving again.
Yeah.
And in fact, I want you to start go back to deadlift sooner rather than later. You know?
Is there anything I'm missing when it comes to pain and breath? Because do you tie in the breath to pain as well?
It's so linked.
Yeah.
It's so linked. And I had this understanding about pain as a physio, right? And then I started doing this breathing. And my initial breathing stuff, like we've discussed, it was all around objective measures, improving shortness of breath and performance. And then I got stabbed. We'll probably talk about that. And then part of my recovery, I became a free dive coach, right? That was what I wanted to do. So then I started holding my breath. And then this holding the breath experience, and I'm sure we've all done it, we've done laps in the pool, in the backyard pool, like, that's a pain feeling, right? And then how do you get better at holding your breath? You hold your breath more, right? Yeah. So your body becomes used to this stimulus, right? And the stimulus is just increasing levels of carbon dioxide, all right? And then my body starts becoming accustomed to that feeling. My nervous system reduces its sensitivity to that carbon dioxide load, right? Similar to you or similar to anyone, if they have pain in their shoulder, if they continue to move that shoulder and rehabilitate it, your body reduces its sensitivity to that movement. You know? So in terms of breathing and holding the breath and this idea of pain, and then you're down, let's say 50 meters down underneath the water, and you're starting to experience these signals of, geez, I'm in pain or I need to take a breath. What can you do in that setting? You're 50 meters under the ocean. You have to have some mental strategies in order to experience mindfulness, right? All right, I'm here. I can feel the water. I'm 50 meters under. I feel lovely. If you start panicking in that environment, it's your game over.
Yeah.
You know? So having those mental skills to be able to challenge the thoughts that do pop up, like, oh yeah, actually my knee is damaged, or no, I can't do this, or my pain is, whatever those doubts are, having some skills upstairs to be able to go like, no, I've done this. I've trained. I know who I am. I know what's going on, and that positive mindset around it.
I love that, and I think a big question that I had leading into this was like, when have you used the breath for your own life? And you mentioned the stabbing, like obviously, can you give us a bit of a background into what happened? But then how did the breath help you recover physically and mentally?
Yeah, it was actually not far from here. My neighbour was getting broken into and I didn't know at the time. So I went over there to help because I heard he was 96 and he was deaf. So heading over there to help him, and there was a guy that was in the bushes and he stabbed me, I didn't get a chance. One of the interesting things I think is I didn't get a chance to fight. Like, it wasn't like, here he is, let's duke it out, and like on Night of the Round Table and I got stabbed. It wasn't like that. It was just like, oh hi, how you going? Bang, stabbed. Like there was no experience there, and from that moment that I put my hand on my chest and I felt the knife in there, first of all I knew it wasn't in a good spot, and then second of all it was like, all right, I have to do everything I can do right now to survive. Because
I imagine your background, being a physician, like you're very accustomed to the body, where your lungs sit, where your heart sit, and so knowing that there's a knife in a pretty critical area, I imagine would be probably add to the experience of how like gnarly it could have been, right?
Yeah, then I think it wouldn't matter if you're a physio or anyone, because it's in the left side of my chest, like pretty much in my pec, right? That's the area it was in.
Yeah.
Wherever it went after that, I wasn't sure. And I'm sure everyone would have that same mindset of like, shit, this is in my left side of my chest.
Yeah.
That's where my heart is, and that's where my lungs are, and that's where some major vessels are. So that first thought was like, so he ran away straight away. When he tried to pull the knife out, he ran away. And then at that moment, I was like, okay, I have to do everything I can to survive. If so, I'm thinking blood loss and I'm thinking breathing, right? So I need to calm myself down. So luckily, I had those breathing tools of teaching the Cirque du Soleil artists how to calm themselves down before performance.
So you were implementing these
straight away.
What'd you do? Or
Well, I put my hand on my chest to find the knife, and then I was like, okay, that's not good. And then I took a moment. So I'm standing in the middle of the street in Palm Beach, and I'm like, exactly what the footy players do. Big breath in. And I just wanted to make sure that I made every right decision so that I could be alive.
That's so good that you're thinking about this while you've got a knife in you as well.
And I don't know why, right? It's not like I've been trained. I'm not like an army dude or anything like that. It was just like, all right, here we are. And I didn't feel it. Like it was, I couldn't feel the knife in me. It was like, that was probably a benefit as well. It was like, all right, this is what I got to do. And then I just started breathing slowly. And it was like, okay, what do I do next? All right, I've got to call for help. And then went to the backyard where my neighbour was, and they were waiting for me. And I just told them, hey, I've been stabbed. I'm going to lie down here. I need you guys to call the ambulance. And that the whole process, I was like making sure things were getting done. Like, okay, can you put that phone on the speaker so I can hear it, right? The cops turned up, they asked me questions about him, and then I said, look, you can't ask any more questions because this knife is not in a good spot. I need a rest. You know, getting in the ambulance, I'm putting pressure on the wound, and I had to ask them if they can get someone else to come and put pressure on the wound because I was fatiguing. I needed to save my energy because I could have died, right? And it wasn't until about 40 minutes after the stabbing where they'd scanned me in another ambulance. I'd gotten to the hospital on the Gold Coast, and then sort of, I was like, oh, I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
And then I remember thinking to myself, I was like, all right, well, it's not often you get stabbed and can survive. Like, I'm going to have fun with this. That was the second sort of the thought I remembered. I was like, all right, well, what can I do with this now, you know? And yeah, I'm good mates with Carl Stefanovic, and he got me on the Today Show, and he said, look, I'll get you a few dates. Everyone loves it. So I'm like, all right, deal.
We're actually taking our resumes in onto the Today Show. Man, that's obviously like, we're laughing about it. Like it's obviously funny, like with Carl. But like, was there any like, because it's a traumatic event. Like imagine a traumatic event. Apart from the physical side, was there any like emotional trauma that comes with that after the fact?
No, I think that's an interesting point, Keegan, and I don't want to downplay the trauma of it because we're laughing about it, and I'm totally fine with that. But I think it's, first of all, as a young person, when I was a kid, I had lots of trauma, so heavy things, I try to make the best out of them, and that's a superpower of mine. But also, I think that I didn't have any interaction with him beforehand. Like, it wasn't like my nervous system and my brain was ready for this fight, it was just like it happened, and then straight away, like literally 5 seconds after it happened, I'm in calm breathing mode, right? So I'm not letting anything imprint on my mind. I purposely chose not to look at the knife, even when it fell out of my chest, getting on the gurney in the hospital, in the ambulance. I purposely chose not to look at it. My shirt had a hole in it where the knife went through. I chose not to keep that because I didn't want that memory there. And I started my rehabilitation pretty much 5 seconds after I got stabbed, right? It was like, okay, this starts now. And whether it was because of my childhood or whether it was because of the actions that I took during that traumatic event, like, I can laugh about it, and I could laugh about it the day after, right? And I expected a wave, right? It's like, I've been in this space. I've helped people deal with big trauma before, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna get hit, right, by something, some wave of anxiety or fear will come over me. And I do get it every now and then if I hear like a knife drag over a table, or I see a knife, I just get this little shudder sometimes, but more of a physical thing than a mental thing.
Because where my head goes is I guess like navigating trauma, right? Like, and I'm coming at it from an angle where I'm like, okay, when we all have our things, like
Mm,
we all have, and sometimes like the hardest thing that you've gone through is the hardest thing that you've gone through. Like,
mm,
like comparing it, it's irrelevant
irrelevant.
because it's your thing.
Mhm.
So I really want to understand like how we can, I guess, like navigate through a traumatic event, or like if we're going through something really hard, like what are some steps that we can all take that would be beneficial, whether it's leading up, like almost prehab,
Mm.
versus to the actual experience, the actual event, and then coming out of it. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know how you prepare for trauma. Um, like I said to you before, I think being stabbed in the chest was perfect for me because I was a physio, breathing physio, right? So it just made sense.
Yeah.
But that was pure luck. I don't think anyone could prepare for that. And obviously, there's multiple different realms of trauma.
Yeah.
So in terms of preparing for it, I'm not sure. I mean, I think just preparing for life, right? Being
Mm.
fit and healthy and
Yeah.
sleep and stress, all of the normal stuff that we do. In terms of navigating it, like
Because you navigated it really well. That's why I asked the question.
yeah, I think if you're during it, like I think some of the important bits was not having that preamble with him, not choosing not to engage with the things that will be left an imprint on my mind. And
Mm.
I see this all the time with people when they're like they look up YouTube stories of things that are similar to that, you know, or they're searching for things and they're like, oh, that happened to me. And they just build these like triggers,
Kind
you
of like
know.
ruminating.
Yeah, like just building these avenues for them to be like, oh, that's right. I got stabbed, you know, like
Yeah.
I consciously, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just didn't want that. I didn't want to see the knife for whatever reason, right? It wasn't because I was like, oh, well, in the future,
Mm.
if I see the knife, that's going to bring up things. It wasn't like that. It was like, all right, close your eyes, just focus on the breathing, you know? So I think making smart decisions to not try and keep jumping back in it, you
Mm.
know, and trying to always take a step forward, you
Yeah.
know, in whatever that way is. And then sort of what we've been discussing is lean into the pain, you
Mm.
know. So my rehab started straight away when I, you know, started breathing properly and calming my nervous system down. And then I took that as an opportunity to be a free dive coach. So,
Yeah.
you know, I was like, all right, well, here I am. I've got to rehab my breathing. I'm a physio, so let's get strong again. And then I'm a free dive instructor now. So,
I'm starting to
yeah.
see like with this podcast, like, and obviously having conversations to a variety of guests in different fields. I'm starting to see that sometimes like things that are really hard and really like these really just challenging moments often lead to really positive outcomes. Like look at you, like you got stabbed, right?
Mm,
Like it's crazy. But then you're like, oh, well, that got me into free diving and like
mm.
spearfishing and like and all these really cool things. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I think that's where life exists, right? In the nooks and crannies of things, right? It's like you become a football player, and then as a football player and going through what you've gone through, you're able to have conversations with other football players,
Yeah.
and then you're able to provide a lot of value to other football players who are navigating their journey. And without your journey, you wouldn't have been able to help their journey. You
Mm.
know, it's like that's fucking life, you know, and I love that, you
Yeah.
know, like I love where life takes us, you know, and that sometimes it's in the pits of hell, you know, where you've got to, you know, manage a knife in your chest, or you've got to manage concussions, and
Mm.
what does my future look like, or I've got to navigate a relationship, or whatever the challenges you have in front of you.
Mm.
Yeah, I tend to turn those into positive experiences.
Yeah.
And I think there's always, and like we said, like leaning into the pain. It's like that's how I approach myself as a physio now, you know.
Yeah.
And I always say this to, you know, I look after many physios around the country. Is like I think physio finds physios.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like we all have this sort of similar breed,
Mm.
and leaning into those sort of experiences with our patients now is why I'm still a physio. You know, if I was still rubbing your knee,
Yeah.
you know, as a physio, like I probably wouldn't be a physio anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to be the physio that I want to be, and research is showing us that. And I've had some of those life experiences that get dealt to you rather than, you know, you go looking for them.
Mate, that leaning into pain piece is so great from a physical point of view, but it also I'm starting to think more about it like in a life point of view as well. Like having a tough conversation,
Mhm.
you know, with a partner or with a colleague, like when things are like when you think an experience might be a little bit more challenging or you're unsure if you can do it, like really leaning into that, because
Mm.
typically like that's where you see the most growth, right? Like and being able to let go of all those things, it's like that is just the perfect analogy for life, I think.
Yeah, I think we see it all the time now, with fitness trends like ice baths and saunas and, all of these things. It's this controlled stress, right? I
Yeah.
think the body and the mind need that, right, to continue to have resilience, for everyday life, because life sucks sometimes,
Yeah.
and if you don't have that resilience, then it's going to affect every part of your life. Your sleep, you're going to experience more pain. You're going to have more stress if you don't have any resilience or tools to deal with that.
Mm.
And then again, preparing for trauma, like I purely think it's just trying to be the best possible version of yourself at all times, because you do not know when life's going to fuck you.
Yeah.
Getting stabbed in my front yard, of my house.
Yeah.
Like I've traveled all around the world, I've
There's
been,
some gnarly
yeah,
places as well.
and I'm like, all right, I'm just helping my neighbor out, and literally in my front like driveway, just like literally 100 meters from here.
Wild.
Um, so yeah, leaning into pain and just be not trying to be a passenger of life,
Man.
because you only get one, really,
I love that. And man, I really love this conversation, mate. Before we do wrap things up, what do you think the biggest thing that we missed in this conversation around the breath?
Well, I think it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
It's something that we can all do right now. Like, we've been here for a while, and just the collective sigh, and then what we see the footy players do, we can all do that now. Like it, and the technique is really take a big breath in, and then take a bigger breath in,
Yeah.
and then really on the exhale, try and really slow it down, and also make a sound. So with the breath, there's so many influences on our brain, and what we try to do and hack essentially the breath is use all of those available tools for us. So when we do the double inhale sigh, we're expanding the lungs as much as we can. That sends information to the brain to say, reduce your shortness of breath. We've got a full breath of air. There's no need to stress or worry, right? So we're taking away some of that.
Yeah.
And that is a real thing. I just finished some work down in Melbourne with some of the top AFL players. Like, childhood asthma affects these guys now if they don't address some of their breathing, right? So experiences when they're young, 5 or 6 years old, getting rushed to hospital, having the asthma experience. And then now, as fully fledged AFL players at the top of their game, you still see evidence of that experience them when they were young, so we can treat stuff like that. So back on that double breath. So if we all do it now, so big breath in, and then again, and then, and making that sound might sound weird, but it definitely makes a difference, because it's, when the research around running, if you run and listen to music, you run better, right? And your perception of exertion is less. And interestingly enough, it has to be music you like. So if I give you some music you don't like and you go running, your running performance will be worse.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
So
good to know.
So, mate, when you're tacking those Ks out, go and listen to some tunes and a nice beat and something that you enjoy. Yeah. What it does do is it takes away that laboured breathing. If your body hears that laboured breathing and your mind hears that laboured breathing, it's going to go, oh shit, we're running pretty hard. This is hard work.
Yeah.
And then that hard work becomes a fruition, So trying to distract yourself away from those things. I've done lots of stuff on running and breathing, and that's another really important tool that you have, particularly as you start down your journey of marathons and running and triathlons. And what a great thing to get into. And I'll certainly help you out with some breathing.
But 100%, I've got so many questions. If people who are listening to this really resonate with this conversation and they want to get more information and more resources, where can they find you? What's out there?
Yeah, I've got a website all about breathing, or Instagram all about breathing. So our job there is to continue to provide education and awareness around tools for the breath. And I work for a business called HealthSack, and we're changing the way people get treated with pain in the workplace. It's like there's so much opportunity for really good outcomes, whether we are using the breath or whether we're supporting individuals. And that's why I get up out of bed, mate. Is like I'm sick of hearing bad stories of being mismanaged in the medical system, and I'm here to make a difference. You know,
Bro, thank you so much, man.
Alright.
That was awesome.
thanks very much. Yeah, it's good done.
Done.